So this is the reason for my interest in things like Alan Turing, and I tell something of a historical narrative. Alan Turing's work has been broadly influential, and my inquiry is, my research work is at the same sort of, interested in the same sort of questions he was interested in. But Turing's influence upon research has been profound, and there is a sort of a divide in logic between essentially the view logicians had before 1950, before the publication of Alan Turing's paper on computing machinery, and afterwards. And afterwards we've sort of started to believe that all the world works like a Turing machine, a particular view of logic that Turing had, and not like the more dominant view of logic that existed before Alan Turing's influence, represented by such people as Rudolf Carnap, Charles Sanders Peirce. These are German and American logicians who are largely responsible for the foundations of modern mathematical logic. But their view of logic before the computer era, before the era brought in by Alan Turing, was very different and much aligned with my own. So then you ask the question comes about, well, Turing's model has been hugely successful, and but I'm claiming that there are fundamental limits to its capabilities. How do you build a machine that does recognition as you and I do recognition?
Well, maybe you don't.
Well, you do.
But he's saying that he's
saying
working.
telling you
He's telling you that you can.
Uh-huh. Indeed, I claim that you can, and it relies upon logical differentiation as opposed to logical integration, which is the primary distinction between these two views in logic. And my calculus is designed to enable us to inform biology and in fact build machines that experience. And the first sort of thing I have in mind has nothing to do with all the wacky ideas of of Ray Kurzweils and such like in the world, people that believe machines are going to wake up. Basically, this would enable you to build suspension systems. This technology would enable you to build a suspension. You know how when you're sitting in a car and you hold a hot cup of coffee,
And then you move it up and down
and
and
you move
you
it,
shake it up.
your car's suspension cannot respond in the way that you do. So you can hold the cup perfectly level. So the first application for this type of technology would be, for example, in building advanced suspension systems that were much smoother than our existing. Also, in medicine, prosthetics, they would enable the building of advanced prosthetics.
Which they have done major improvements in.
Right. So humble beginnings.
Yeah, but wouldn't the machine have to be partially organic? Holy cow.
Depends what you mean by organic. You mean carbon?
Not necessarily carbon, but organic.
Well, if it's a
something
carbon,
living.
by definition, organic means the chemistry of carbon.
Okay. But
So-
not necessarily carbon. This is really good, but spicy.
Okay, so now where are you working at now? So you have like a lab that you go to and work on this theory of recognition.
So I've been doing this work now for 7 years. And I took a rest this summer. But before that,
everything okay?
It's wonderful. Thank you.
When you try this,
I will.
So for 7 years, so how far advanced are you in this field?
Well, I'm doing the mathematics now.
Which is considered the logic part.
It's the hard part. Well, I had to go back. There are certain things in contemporary mathematics that if I do not address them first, I cannot formalize my own model. So I actually have to go back into the foundations of mathematics and review certain assumptions that exist there, because they have direct relevance on these assumptions are assumptions about how we apprehend the world.
So do you actually build a computer with its suspensions and it's all calculus and paper?
This is theory and yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes the way I try to describe my work is think of all of the work that's been happening in biology and in biophysics in the past 50 years as analogous to the work of Johannes Kepler and Galileo, and Copernicus. So these people studied falling bodies. You know, they did a lot of Galileo in particular did a lot of experiments on how bodies fall through the air, and he proved that Aristotle was wrong. Aristotle had argued through reason alone that if you drop a heavy object and a light object, that the heavy object will hit the ground first. And he was wrong. Galileo showed that in fact if you drop a heavy object and a light object, they'll hit the ground at exactly the same time. This is the effect of that we now know as the effect of gravitation, but at the time these were simple observations that people like Galileo, Kepler, and Copernicus had made. So these observations include the falling bodies that fall around the sun, which are the planets, and how the solar system works. And it was so think of what the state we're in today as being in terms of understanding what biophysics and biology. In terms of understanding biophysics and biology, today we're in an analogous position to the position that Newton found himself in when he first started thinking about falling bodies. So there's a lot of data, a lot of interesting, fascinating data, but there's no theory that unifies it.